grants and shares from the national government. Some of these are loans, meaning we are paying for loans which are held here and are not doing the work at the rural settings. Some of these monies which are held here, Mr. Speaker, are also salary arrears for health workers. So it appears to me, members, that we are shooting ourselves in the foot. At one point, we are giving the hospitals, especially level 6 and 5, the budget to deal with the conditions which we ought to have even prevented at the primary health care. Money from Danida and all that category are supposed to improve primary health care. Now we are having them here. So as a result, we will have progressed conditions which unnecessarily should have been allowed to do that. Some of the monies are also for climate resilience, agriculture, food systems resilience, which can make also the rural economy become more vibrant. They are held here. As a result, when this is not acted quickly, Mr. Speaker, and I urge members to do so, what will happen is that we are killing the rural economies, we are interfering with the health of our people, and also we are interfering with businesses, because some of these development partners are supporting small business scale. Mr. Speaker, we are also interfering with equity and equality, which is distancing itself as the time goes. There are so many people who are sinking into poverty, and a few who are opulently living are at the top of the helm. So, Mr. Speaker, as a House, I think it was wrong for the other institutions like the Senate and the COG to demand that this bill be that their 10 billion bill be added into this in order to pass. That does not make sense to me. It appears that they are also shooting themselves in the foot. Why don't we just pass this bill, release the money, and fight other fights, not with the money that is holding the lives of people? So I urge members, because I feel the necessity and the urgency of this money to be released, to pass this as soon as possible. I thank you for the time, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable James Jika, you are on my list here. You speaking on this?
Can I have them? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I arise to support this bill. And Mr. Speaker, what bothers me is that this is a bill actually for the 2024-25. It's the funds that should have long been used, and we are still discussing them. And the people they were supposed to serve actually have not been served. The jobs they were supposed to do have not been done. And Mr. Speaker, my concern is the perpetual adversarial relationship between the counties and the national government. When devolution came, Mr. Speaker, I don't think the idea was to actually build territories. The idea was actually to get monies to flow to the counties. It's a good idea because it has made equity much easier. And it really does not matter to the people that are being served where the resources come from. And I think as leaders we should realize this. When we are having territorial differences and thinking this should be that, should be that, the people are just, if it is water, they're just looking for water. They don't want to know whether the water is from the national government or the water is from the county government. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I think that this should not be happening every year. The relationship actually, the law provided, Article 187 of the Constitution provided how this should be done. The Intergovernmental Relations and Technical Committee provided how there should be a relationship, even between policies, even between programs at the county and the national level. And so when it comes to just distributing money so that we give additional money to the counties, why should we have a difference? I will agree with my colleague, Honorable Martin, that if you have other things that we differ on, I think we should let the money go and serve the people, and we go on. And I think it is time that we actually relooked at our structures. Are we adhering to them, or we are actually just using them as obstacles to service to the people? If you look in these particular instances, the programs that are actually being delayed, the arrears for the agreements during the strikes of the health workers, is that money that we should actually be questioning. That money should have gone, and people should have been paid to the counties if they're working the counties, and they should be paid, because what was agreed, that the bargaining agreement was that the national government should pay, and we agreed that they should pay, and that was what was part of the return to work formula. I think, Mr. Speaker, you yourself, you are more versed in these things. Why we delay these things, I do not know. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the issue of community health workers, these people were putting more and more loads on them. You go into the rural areas, you are finding that we are putting more equipment with them. Now we are asking them to take blood pressures, we are asking them to help diabetics. We are putting more and more load on them. But when the time comes to pay them, even now, Mr. Speaker, I'm not satisfied with the payment structures for the community health promoters. Even the change of name from community health workers, community health volunteers, and now community health it shows that deep inside, we really don't want to acknowledge these people as health workers. Now they are calling them promoters. And now, part of the money is being paid by the county government, part of the money is being paid by the national government, and that is why this money has to move. We actually need to get a clear structure. To me, get all that money and put it to the counties and let those people be paid. People are best paid where they work. Money should come through the supervisors that they know. You can't be working in one level and your money is coming from another level. If there is delay, you do not even know how to follow up that money. So I think these are things we should do. And as we know, there are a lot of funds that comes to us through grants and loans from partners, international partners. Mr. Speaker, those monies are being given to Kenyans, and Kenyans live in the counties. They are I don't know Kenyans that live at national level, I don't know where they are. So if the monies come through, in fact, we should have more programs at the county levels. So if the grant and loans are to move from partners are to move to the counties, is that something we should still have arguments about? And even where the proceeds are from activities that have taken part in the counties, like the courts, when the proceeds of court fines come, and it's agreed that they should actually be shared, those are things that once we put the law, if we feel the law is not as good as we want it, let it pass 1 year, and the next year we can always amend the law. We can always look at it. But we cannot hold services that we want a perfect law. For me, Mr. Speaker, we should be more focused on getting the services to our people at the counties. Whatever money we get that should go to the counties, they should go. Arguments should come later. With that, Mr. Speaker, I support this bill.
The Honorable Phyllis Bartow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to put my voice and support this county government additional allocation bill, National Assembly number 2, 2025. Mr. Speaker, we started devolution, and we cannot strangle it so that it is not able to serve the people. Mr. Speaker, county governments play a very important role in our economy and to the people of Kenya. And when the county governments are not well resourced, it is the same people we are serving who become disadvantaged. Mr. Speaker, a case in point is my county, the county of Uasin Gishu. And I empathize and sympathize with my governor, Jonathan B. or Elias Kotimoja. Because, Mr. Speaker, because of the scarcity of resources in the county government, the governor has been reduced to playing very minor roles in the county, which I don't want to mention, because he is not resourced, he doesn't have money to run the activities of the county. Mr. Speaker, case in point is the road infrastructure, which, in fact, at this time of the year in Uasin Gishu, it is raining. And the county roads are in very bad condition. The machines which have been purchased are just idle because there is no fuel. The county cannot fuel those machines so that the roads are improved. The road network is improved. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill is very important and it should be dealt with the urgency it deserves so that our counties can continue being operational. Mr. Speaker, a case in point is also the promoters, the health promoters. They are supposed to be given a small figure of 5,000, very little amount of money, which is not even enough. And yet they are not getting it because there is no money in our counties. And Mr. Speaker, we are giving them a lot of additional work. For instance, they are supposed to be registering SHA. They are supposed to be sensitizing communities in a matter SHA. Yet they do it. They do it very diligently. But at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, they don't have anything to take home. Mr. Speaker, if we are supposed to make this SHA functional, this money should be released to the county so that they can run. Our hospitals, Mr. Speaker, there is no medication. In fact, as I was coming to Parliament a few minutes ago, I met a group of health workers demonstrating in the streets. This is a clear indication that our county governments are not working. They are not operating because they don't have resources. And at the same time, in fact, the little resources which they have are to use it to support other services because they are not enough. Mr. Speaker, the issue of fertilizer, which is very key at the moment, especially during the planting season, was devolved to counties. They are supposed to do the last mile, where they distribute the fertilizer from the National Cereals Board to the different cooperative societies which are in the counties or in the county, in the wards. But unfortunately, the county government is not able to do that. If you go to Uasin Gishu now, to the National Cereals Board stores, you will find farmers struggling, haggling for the fertilizer because the county is not able to transport it from the centers, from the cereal boards to the cooperative societies in the regions because they don't have resources. Mr. Speaker, if this devolution was supposed to make life easy for our citizens, then we had better disperse this money so that the common mwananchi can at least feel that something called devolution was done. Mr. Speaker, if there is any problem, if there is an obstacle in the disbursement of this money, then it should be eased out so that the members of our communities can benefit. If Senate is the problem, for instance, if Senate wants anything, any funding through this bill, they had better wait so that this one is dispensed with quickly, because at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, we all serve the same mwananchi. The mwananchi who elected the senator is the same Mwananchi who elected the governor, is the same Mwananchi who elected the member of parliament, is the same Mwananchi who elected the member of county assembly. So let us put our differences aside and look at what benefits the Mwananchi directly. Let us sort other issues elsewhere or independently, and don't put obstacles that make the lives of our citizens difficult. Because, for example, the county industrial parks, what are referred to as KIPes, Mr. Speaker, in my county, the county of Uasin Gishu, specifically even in my own constituency, Muiben constituency, we launched one, or we did the groundbreaking of one, and we were so excited that it was going to bring a lot of value to the lives of the farmers, to the lives of Mwamamboga, to the lives of everybody who was in Muiben when we were groundbreaking that day. But Mr. Speaker, this is 2 years down the line. The building is just a sorry state of itself because there is no work going on, because there is no money. So how I wish these resources are fast-tracked so that we have the completion rate of all these projects which have been commissioned can be achieved. Because once they are not completed on time, there is also the cost element, there is the legal aspect, because a contractor will not just sit and wait for a decision to be done so that they are paid. People work on timelines, and when they are not paid, they will go to court. The court will give them FT awards, and who bears the burden? It is still the county government, it is still the government of Kenya. So, Mr. Speaker, how I pray that we pass this bill, we make sure, which will make sure that the money goes express to the county government, and the county government can serve the people of Kenya. What we would only wish is that let the money do what is, go and serve the people for the purpose in which it was intended. Let us not have a scenario where the allocations are dispersed and then the resources are diverted to the purposes which were not intended. Up to there, Mr. Speaker, I support this bill wholeheartedly, and I hope and I wish that it is fast-tracked so that very soon, our county governments, the governors will be up running and serving the people of Kenya. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable John Waluke.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me a chance also to speak on this important bill. Honorable Speaker, I am different from many or few of us. Honorable Speaker, unless we put the structure correct about these monies going to the counties. Honorable Speaker, some of the counties are doing well, and some of the counties are just swindling the money. So, Honorable Speaker, if we are all supporting that the money should go to the county governments, that there's no work going on in the counties, it is because we have not put the structure properly, like CDF monies. The structure is there. The money goes to the constituencies, and then it is seen working, Honorable Speaker. But not like this one. Honorable Speaker, I invite you to my constituency one time. Since devolution, there is nothing, even a bottle of water like this, in my constituency from the county government. And I always wonder, and we get almost 13 billion annually, Honorable Speaker, and there's nothing that has, you cannot talk of anything from the county government. Honorable Speaker, about the Agriculture and Industrial Pact, it is only Busia County which I visited, and maybe Honorable Speaker, you are also there. I saw that, and I'm impressed with the Busia County, Honorable Speaker, with the work Busia County is doing. Even the President was amused when we all saw the structures of the industrial park, what is going on in Busia, and it was given the same amount the same day with my county, Bungoma County. And Bungoma, there is nothing. And even the PS, Dr. Mwana was wondering that I gave the money the same day, and here the work is seen. It is almost complete. The roads, tarmacked everywhere, to show that Busia County is working, is serious. So, Honorable Speaker, some counties are just there to steal. So, let's put the structures in place before we release the money to the county. And if they can ask, Honorable Speaker, maybe we give to those counties that are doing better, like Busia and the others, like Mandera County, Honorable Speaker, where the governor saw that the money was just there, he has not used it enough, he had to return it to the treasury because he is honest. Honorable Speaker, for many years, Honorable Speaker, governors have let us down in many aspects. We are talking of CHB, crying for salaries not paid, and it is true, Honorable Speaker. But it's a time, Honorable Speaker, even constituencies, us, the President made sure that he cleared all the balances that we were demanding as constituencies. He made sure that all the counties were given all their monies. And after a week or so, you'll just see them on the TVs complaining that there's no money. Where does the money go to? So it is high time, Honorable Speaker, we are not just here as a voting machine, and we need to be honest to the people, even if they suffer. But we want to see, we want the truth, we want honesty, we want the money to be used properly to those people, to 1 inch. Even if you go to the counties, some counties like mine, they will tell you that, no, the money is badly being used. So let's be open, let's be candid, let's be bold to say, to speak what is wrong. We must say that it is wrong. Honorable Speaker, thank you.
The Honorable Japheth Nyakundi, Member of Parliament, Kitutu. Give him the mic. Any mic around? Yes, you can use that one.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also put my word on the county government additional allocation bill, which I believe is a very, very important bill to the people of Kenya, and more especially to the county governments, because our county governments play a very crucial and critical role in making sure that our people back at home get the services that they require. When this constitution was passed in 2010 to bring up the county government, these county governments were brought up to ensure that they get services to our people. This bill, therefore, is important, Mr. Speaker, sir, because there is some money lying somewhere, and there are people back at home who are to receive this money to get services, but they are not getting them because the money is lying here. Mr. Speaker, what has touched me so much about this bill is money that is meant for the CHPs is in this bill. In December, I had a meeting with CHPs from my constituency, and to some point, they were very happy with the national government because the national government tends to release the money for the CHPs in time, but at that particular time, there was a backlog of the money that was meant for CHPs of about 8 months from the county government. So this bill is important because I believe these CHPs need this money because they play a critical role, more especially at this particular time, because of the registration that they are doing for SHA and SHIF, which now we call it Taifa Care, which is very critical for the people of Kenya. And this is one of the 5 pillars of President William Ruto, which is very critical. Since time immemorial, there is no such huge thing like the Taifa Care that is ongoing that has ever been passed. This is the first time, and it has come through during this period of President William Ruto, and I believe it will be able to succeed despite having some teething problems. It is normal to have teething problems, but I believe this SHA and SHIF is good for our people. And by paying the CHPs, it is important because these CHPs are the ones who are the roadmap towards making sure that the Taifa Care is a story to tell in future or it succeeds. Number 2, we have seen there is a lot of money that the donors have given out, but on our side of bargain, this donor money needs to be matched up with some money from the national government. And a lot of money is here lying, like money from KISIP, which is the Kenya Informal Improvement Project, money from Kenya Urban Support Project, money for Water Sanitation and Development Project, which, as we know, water is a devolved function. Like the other day in my brother, Honorable Silvanos Osoro, there was a problem. People were infected because of drinking contaminated water. Therefore, I ask the county governments, when you receive this money, make sure that you use this money in a good and proper manner. Because if we had good, clean water in South Mogirango, right now, we couldn't be having the issues that we are having there. Many people were infected, many people, the water contaminated and made sure that affected so many people. It was a sad incident. It was one of the incidents that we've never seen in Kisii for the first time. So therefore, we call about the county governments to ensure that when they receive this money, they make sure that this money is used in a good and a proper manner. I have seen other people enjoying saying that in their counties they are receiving money for the aggregation centers or the Skypes. These aggregation centers are very good for making sure that, one, it creates employment. Number 2, farmers are able to make sure that their goods and commodities are able to be brought in one place and sold, and even done some value addition. I have seen so many counties here, about 18 counties that are going to receive the money. But I am devastated because the county where I come from, is not going to receive the money because the contractor or the county government has not made sure that the project is ongoing. The project is stalled, and that is why they have not been given the money, or they are not receiving the money. So we call upon the county government to ensure that when they receive money from the national government, and I want to thank the national government, because nowadays these county governments receive money on time. The problem is that we have some governors who are very incompetent, who are not making sure that the money we receive is not used in a good and proper manner. We want to call upon the county governments to ensure that any money they receive from the national government goes into making sure that the services that Mwananchi need back at home are gotten. We are seeing like right now they want money that is meant for RMLF for our roads in Kera. They want the 10 billion to go to the county government. And as we speak, the money they receive for the roads they have not even used that money to make sure that our roads are okay. The roads are impassable. The roads are pathetic, and they want more money. I don't know why they want more money, and the money that they have not even used it. They even don't have enough personnel. They don't have enough engineers like the Kenya rural roads have in making sure that they supervise the roads that are being done by Kera. And if you go back at home right now, you can clearly identify a road that is done by Kera because their roads are done in a good and a proper manner compared to the county roads, which engineers who are doing them are very incompetent. The people who are doing them are very incompetent. And even some of these roads, we cannot see them. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to support this county allocation bill because I believe that counties are important and they play a vital role in making sure that Mwananchi gets services. As the National Assembly, the Senate, we will make sure that we support the counties. But as we support the counties, there is a rider. Make sure that the money that we give you is used in a good, proper manner. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I submit.
Great. Is the Honorable Geoffrey Mwangi Tetu in the House? Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to also lend my voice to this debate. And Mr. Speaker, to start, I fully support this bill, the 2025 County Government Additional Allocations Bill. But Mr. Speaker, I would like to first point out that this is the House that is going to protect devolution. This House and the House of Senate. And it is our primary mandate to protect devolution. This week, Mr. Speaker, we saw an MOU being signed that purported to protect devolution, yet that is a responsibility of this House. But be it that as it may be, there is need to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that first of all, we devolve all the functions that was put in the schedule of devolution in our Constitution, and this includes health, which, Mr. Speaker, up to today we know the bulk of the money for health still sits at Afya House, at the north with our county governments who are in charge of healthcare. The money for agriculture still sits at Kilimo House. The government is still in the business of fertilizer, an item that should be going to the county government. The government has recently engaged in the business of housing, which again, it is clearly a devolved function. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge this House first and foremost to ensure that we protect devolution from the excesses of the executive that we have continued seeing from time to time. Mr. Speaker, our healthcare workers are on strike, and it is very important that then we release this money very, very quickly. It is also sad that our health, community health promoters have literally two employers. Some money comes from the national government, some money comes from the county government. And I think when you have two employers and there may not be any synchronization as to when the salaries come, you find they have been paid some half of the money, the other half is being waited. How can we ensure that this money is put maybe at the beginning of the year for community health workers and synchronized and paid at the same time? So we urge Treasury to ensure that these funds are released in time. However, Mr. Speaker, our governors and our county governments cannot escape blame. I think despite us being proponents and disciples of devolution, they have at times made devolution look like it was a sham or like it was a myth because of some of the things that we keep seeing in our counties, Mr. Speaker. The biggest item being corruption and wastage and plunder of public resources within our counties. Mr. Speaker, this is something that Senate and this House, we have to keep looking for additional measures. And we also want to urge the Auditor General and also ask the various government arms of government that are concerned with fighting corruption to refocus, to put very sharp focus on our counties, which have now become the headquarters of corruption. Actually, the joke in this country is that the only thing we successfully did was to devolve corruption. So, Mr. Speaker, that is something we must address. Also, our county government seem to lack the capacity to absorb the money that they have been given. A recent report showed that a lot of them have not even absorbed their capital expenditure or have been deviating their capital expenditure. And a big problem, Mr. Speaker, that we have in our counties is a bloated workforce. Every governor comes and adds his 200, 300 new employees. In 5 years, those ones cannot be fired because they are on permanent and pensionable. A new governor comes, adds his 500. So a lot of our counties, Mr. Speaker, we need a staff audit. And maybe it is time that we put them under the Public Service Commission, if they are not already there, so that the establishment is clearly approved by both the Public Service Commission and also the salaries are determined correctly by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. Mr. Speaker, counties have also become the people who are holding a lot of pending bills. And sadly, these also come from very small business people. Although this is not only a problem of county government, it's also in the national government. Mr. Speaker, it is sad that in this country, the third largest source of revenue after taxes and domestic borrowing is what I would call SME finance. And how do SME finance contribute to the economy of the country? When you procure goods from a small businessman at the beginning of the year, goods worth $1 million, and you have not paid him for a year or 2 years or 3 years, is in that person being forced to unlawfully contribute to the kitty of the country. So this is something, Mr. Speaker, that would also like addressed going forward. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, how can our counties diversify their revenues? We created 47 small governments. Those of us who are there during the constitution-making process, everybody cautioned that these were too many. But I think now we have crossed the Rubicon. We may not be able to reverse to the 8 that we desired. So how can we ensure that these 47 small governments are somehow self-sustaining? Because over time, as we devolve more functions, as the country goes through the various economic challenges that it is going through, how can we ensure that counties raise more and more of their revenues? And it is important that we come up with mechanisms. And I know there are some mechanisms, but they need to be strengthened to ensure that counties get money based on how much they collect. There are some governors who are doing very little, or they sit in their headquarters, wait for the big check from Treasury, and sit with their colleagues and cronies and figure out how to divide it. But Mr. Speaker, as I finish, I would like to point out about my own county of Nyeri. Because when I look at this schedule, and I remember going to a meeting about 2 years ago, just after we were elected, and Nyeri was supposed to be one of the first beneficiaries of the county aggregation and industrial parks. But when I look at the county of Nyeri, I can see it has 0 allocation. I don't know whether it's because it got an allocation last year or whether the governor has not contributed his matching funds. But Mr. Speaker, I would like it to be on record that the county government of Nyeri has not received any monies this year, or with regards to the county aggregation and industrial parks. And we have a lot of things that we would like to do. It is an agricultural county, and would like to be able. Mr. Speaker,
what's your point of order? What's your point of order?
No, just to inform my friend, that guy is my friend, he's a good member of parliament, that, Nyeri may not have an allocation here because either they have not used the money that they have adequately, or secondly, that there was no contribution from the county government, or that they have not found the land to put up the KIPE. And therefore, probably as an MP and as a friend of the governor, you need to go out there and ask the governor what has happened, because we have seen those that have been allocated on the basis of good progress on their KIPEs, and that they also have land, and the county governments has also made allocation. So I know the good governor, Dr. Kahiga, is your friend. He should help the people of Nyeri to get a KIPE before he departs, and it will be part of his legacy, and that the only legacy he should not leave for the people is that they were Munyoro trained. He needs to leave a KIPE, a proper
You've made
KIPE.
your point.
Thank you.
You've made your point. The Honorable Gideon
Mr.
Ochanda.
Speaker, I had not concluded because I was interrupted by a point of order. So
at one point you gave me an impression.
yeah,
that you had
because but
concluded.
I thought you'd allow me to finish, but you stopped me to allow the deputy leader of majority to make some remarks against Wamunyoro, which are quite unpalatable in this house.
Honorable member, I'm a fairly seasoned moderator. In my opinion, you were trying to run away from the point of order. And maybe you are just being now
that I was caught
to reply. So let's move on. Thank you. The point is taken. The Honorable Gideon Ochanda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak to something that the entire leadership of the House needs to really take precaution on. Because annually, every single year, we have conflicts in terms of the vertical revenue allocations, the division of vertical allocations, every year. When we are doing that, we many times do it without thinking of additional monies, whether they are conditional or unconditional monies that are extended to the counties. So in my view, Mr. Speaker, if you look at what we are calling now additional funding, in this bill we are talking about figures beyond 6 billion. You add on grants, you add on many other things that the national government is supporting the counties on. We are talking of huge amounts of money. You look at the markets that, for example, the national government is doing in my county is more than 1 billion Kenya shillings. And that is not here, and that is in one county. So if you put all those things together, these disputes that we constantly have between the Senate and ourselves complaining about the figures, the division of revenues, I think needs to end. Otherwise, we need to be putting all these things together in one kind of a division arrangement where the additionals plus all those things that are given to the counties are put together, are lumped together when we are doing the revenue division vertically. So, Mr. Speaker, it is important that we take this moving forward so that it can also help us in terms of issues of negotiations and understanding, that we don't need to constantly dispute over revenue division just because of figures that are thrown off the table. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to talk to the next thing, which is on the whole issue of the monies that are taken to the county in relation to their development vote. Last week, what we saw was a little bit embarrassing. Nearly all the counties, if you put their development vote, none of them is beyond a quarter. None of them is beyond 25%. But again, if you isolate the 25% in the name of a quarter, and you look at in terms of how these counties are spending this money, we were shown that the county that had used the development money in a manner that we'll be talking about was slightly over 30%. The rest are below 10%. So why do we want to constantly vote for monies to go to the counties Then we vote for additional monies to go to the counties, and then we don't see development. So this is something that we need to check. If you compare that with the meager monies that are given through this NGCDF, and you compare that with this allocation that we constantly give the counties, it's something that you can't compare. You can't compare at all. So the whole issue of counties not doing development, that their performance is below 10% in terms of how the development vote was carried out in the last financial year, I think is not right. It's amazing. The other thing that is here, Mr. Speaker, that I think is important to note is the whole issue of how court fines have been sent out to counties. We used to have what were called municipal courts before. These municipal courts were virtually in every county, in every town council, in every municipality, and in every county. And they were handling issues of the municipal bylaws. Some of these bylaws are in existence. I don't understand why the issues that are related to court fines generated by the municipalities or by the county government should not be given as local revenue by those counties. Instead of collecting court fines and now spreading them out, splitting them up such that some counties get, some don't. I think this is not right. So if you look at this thing seriously, you realize that there are some counties that have not been given in terms of this additional money from courts, what we call the court fines. That some don't have. Those that don't have, I'm very clear in my mind that their counties generated some revenue through in the name of fines.
Honorable Chanda, you are talking to the nation. Could you explain exactly what you mean by some being given the court fines, others not getting the court fines? Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you look at the schedule in terms of the bill that we are talking about, you realize that many counties are blank. They are blank. They're with 000. Some have figures. And what I'm trying to say here is...
Yes, what's your point of order, Leader?
That in the terms of court fines, there are certain counties which have set courts. Because these court fines are fines that have been generated from fines from the county government courts. County governments have established their own courts. I know the one in Mombasa, if you go to Treasury Square, there is a county court. Now, the fines that are generated from the county court is what now needs to be disbursed to be used by the county. My county of Kilifi just set the court the other day, so they cannot get money because they have not generated any court fines. So these are the court fines. You see other counties have, others do not, because it is actually money that belongs to the counties that have been generated through court fines that is now being given a framework for disbursement to the county so the county can use the money. So if your county does not have a court, tell your governor to start a court and then ensure that many borders and many traders go there, they are fined and they get money. I think
we are together, my leader. We are together, my leader. That's exactly what I was talking about. That before the advent of what we're calling devolutions here, there were what were called municipal courts, and they were all over. These courts that were all over is exactly what I'm saying needs to be all over again, such that they help generate court fines for those particular counties that may not be having them now. Because...
Order, leader. That's not how the House runs.
So, Mr. Speaker,
Proceed,
that's exactly the explanation that you had wanted, that I'm trying to bring out. We are together with Bayer in this. It's only that there are certain counties where the issue of court fines have not been factored because some of these municipal courts that were there previously are no longer functional. And if they are functional, all of them are under the central judiciary that we know. And if that happened, it means that they are denied a source of revenue for purposes of their own fines that needed to be part of their local revenue, Mr. Speaker. That's exactly what I was talking about. And if you looked at it like that, there is no county that should go blank. There's no county that can have zero. Because if you looked at the initial municipal courts, they're all over in all the towns, and all those towns are clearly now under county governments. So, Mr. Speaker, those are some of the things that I wanted to bring, that we really need to see that this issue of additional grants really absolves us from this annual disputes in terms of vertical revenue allocation, Mr. Speaker. With that, I thank you and I support the additional allocation.
Ridikiri Mugambi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've looked at this bill. I have noticed that it has met the threshold of what is required for laws to be presented to this House for deliberations. Mr. Speaker, I join the other members in supporting this bill, but to note of concern is the utilization of resources that are either with the national government or with the county government. Mr. Speaker, allocation or giving more money to national government or the county government does not mean that they are going to utilize it properly to implement the intended purpose. Mr. Speaker, it is good that the national government and the county government work together, particularly on some critical times, particularly during drought, when we have health crisis, when we have floods, etc., etc. Mr. Speaker, Article 190 gives us the leeway to allocate more funds to the counties because they need development. So I've looked at this bill and I've realized it is addressing key and pertinent issues, which I'll summarize as follows. Mr. Speaker, I have noticed that there is the county aggregation industrial park, which is a very important component of the government agenda. Mr. Speaker, I want to clear the misinformation that these counties are being developed by the county government. We, the national government and the county government, are in partnership. And the importance of these aggregation centers, Mr. Speaker, is to create areas that will enhance value addition. They will create storage facilities. They will become centers of innovation. They will become centers where trading can be done effectively in an organized manner. Mr. Speaker, in Meru, the aggregation industrial park is situated in my constituency, and we are certain that the national government and the county government are in a partnership. Mr. Speaker, we are an agricultural county. My constituency is the largest producer of flowers, the largest producer of wheat, the largest producer of potatoes and vegetables, which feeds almost the northern frontier. So this is a very important thing for us to support and allocate more money because of what I've just said. Mr. Speaker, we have passed through a very tempting and a very embarrassing situation where medical provision of medical services in this country has been put to test. Mr. Speaker, we have seen the crisis on the medical sector. We have seen doctors, unemployed doctors. We have seen interns. We have seen existing doctors employed, but they have never been paid their salaries. Mr. Speaker, we all know that health is devolved, and therefore the government has to come in handy and to clear those arrears so that the country can move on. We need, as a national government, to release more funds to the counties. Mr. Speaker, the question that we need to ask ourselves here is, why did the counties wait until we reach this point where there is a crisis? Many will say the national government had read in setting the money, but that's not the truth. Mr. Speaker, what we are seeing at the county government is improper utilization of the resources and lack of priorities. Mr. Speaker, it is quite a balancing a country of Kenyan age that we hear doctors cannot be paid. And we all know that health is a very important factor in this country. Mr. Speaker, I have seen money in support of health promoters. Yes. But again, Mr. Speaker, I'm a bit embarrassed here because in the Meru County, the only promoters we have is 3,716. And we are being given a statistic that every health promoter will be in charge of 100 households. I have multiplied and I found in Meru, the health promoters are going to cover only 371,600 households. Surely, that's not even a half of Meru's household. Meaning, we are far from meeting the expectations in the health sector in terms of provision for health care. Mr. Speaker, we would like to put more resources on this sector and this area. Mr. Speaker, I have seen that the money that is coming in is from the development partners. And this is where now I have a bit of a problem, Mr. Speaker. Because if you look at the schedule that has been provided here, you will notice there are so many projects. Some of them are repeated projects. And there's nothing wrong. But the only problem is accountability. Mr. Speaker, here in and here out, we are sending money from the development partners to counties. Who oversees the utilization and implementation of this project, Mr. Speaker? And I want to join my colleague Oshanda when we are saying every year in, we are giving a lot of unconditional revenue to counties. And I'll give an example. We appropriate the Kenya informal settlement schemes. There is a Kenya urban settlement schemes. Mr. Speaker, we don't know if these things are not visible at the counties. I have seen a program here on climate change, 2 programs, parallel, one 3.3 billion, the other one 1.2 billion. I have seen on drought is a repeated thing. Even when this money is coming, what is the basis of bringing this money? Who oversight this? The National Assembly, where we sit here, KISIP, KUSIP, they all pass this house. But this is a conduit. After that, what normally happens? What is the value of this money that is being given to counties year in, year out? It's a concern to us, Mr. Speaker. I am here to see a governor who will rise up and issue a policy statement on the sector of education, on the sector of health, on the sector of agriculture, on the sector of water. All what we are seeing is impromptu implementation of 1 or 2 projects, discriminatively, where they have no support, they rush, they don't go there, they never speak about water policy, they never speak about even this health policy. That is why we are having a country grounding to a halt in sectors like health sector, Mr. Speaker. A time has come, even as much as you are saying we obey Article 190 to support the counties, time has come for accountability. We must not be passing bills and additional revenue. We must have accountability. Every single money that goes, after we pay the salary arrears, what next? After we give them green light to use the money collected from the courts, what next, Mr. Speaker? These are the basic questions that you really need to ask, so that Every money that is taken in the counties, it must have a correspondent policy. I see here, even you are giving them money and there is no framework for the courts. There is no framework, but you are approving.
Give him 1 minute.
Thank you. How are we allocating more money without a framework? There is money being taken to consolidated fund. To get that money from consolidated fund, we need a framework. There must be a law. But the bill here is saying, let's give them the money. So are we doing the right thing? Are we doing the right thing? Yes, the others we understand. But even where the law is needed, we must pass that law before we allocate the money, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, we must challenge the counties. And we must ask ourselves, why do they wait until a county has arrears? Why do we have to wait until we start pumping them with money? I mean, Mr. Speaker, I think national government is spoiling the counties. Mr. Speaker, the cost of living cannot be apportioned to the national government only. The cost of living needs to be apportioned to the counties also, because they have money on agriculture, they have money on water, they have money on drought. So when we are bashing the national government of high cost of living, we should not spare the counties. More so, Meru County. It should not be spared. The governors must say what they are doing to reduce the cost of living. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Makalimulu.
Yeah, thank you so much, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. Honorable Speaker, I want to add my voice to this important debate on the county allocation of additional resources. Honorable Speaker, it is important from the onset we realize that we are not discussing the equitable share. We are discussing additional resources which are supposed to go to the counties. And these resources are actually conditional resources which come from either the government or the development partners, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, this bill is being presented to this House the second time. If you remember, it was presented here, we could not agree with their comments, it went to the Senate, they could not agree with us, went to the mediation process died midway. And that's why the bill now has been brought here. But I want us to be more objective in terms of how we look at this bill. The first thing, Honorable Speaker, we are discussing resources for 2024-2025 conditional grants. Looking at where we are in terms of financial year, we are doing this in the month of March, which means we have only about 3 months to the end of the financial year, Honorable Speaker. If you look at the history of this bill, the county government additional resources, Honorable Speaker, this House has always been passing this bill very late in the day. And then because of that, Honorable Speaker, you find there isn't much implementation time. So even before you go to the subject matter of the bill, the issue of timing on when we pass this bill is a critical issue. And I think this House needs to look at that issue, Honorable Speaker. Why am I saying that? Honorable Speaker, we have our development partners who have committed resources to help our development in our counties. And by doing that, so long as this bill remains a bill and not an act of parliament, those resources cannot be passed to the counties, which means automatically we are denying our own people the chance to benefit from this resources, Honorable Speaker. And looking at what is happening, Honorable Speaker, the last report of the control of budget, you saw majority of the counties are only spending about 17% of their budget on development, as opposed to the targeted 35%, which means, Honorable Speaker, this additional resources from our development partners are the resources we should be complementing our own resources so that we experience development in the rural setting. So the issue of timing is critical. The other issue which is critical, Honorable Speaker, is the issue of, and I agree with my colleagues, when these conditional grants at the end of the day find themselves in the counties, Honorable Speaker, there is a huge gap in terms of accountability framework. You find the once they go to the county, the resources now implemented at the county, but in terms of budgeting and appropriation, they are somewhere at the headquarters. So how do you account for these resources? You find that the county governments cannot, the county assemblies might not be able to do the oversight at that time. And the national government, because they have resisted resources, there's also that element. So there's a gap. And I think the whole issue of monitoring and evaluation of these resources need to be discussed thoroughly and a way forward agreed. Otherwise, you still leave that room where this resource might be misdirected or misapplied or even through corruption, Honorable Speaker, that the money doesn't get to the root where it's expected. So on that basis, Honorable Speaker, it is important that even as we think about this additional resource to the counties, a clear monitoring framework, monitoring evaluation framework, and a clear accountability framework is put in place. The other important matter, Honorable Speaker, is the issue of, if you look at the bill, it talks about community health promoters, where the county government is supposed to pay some money and the national government is supposed to pay some money. Honorable Speaker, imagine a situation where the national government releases the money for the community promoters, but the counties don't have the money. So it means instead of getting 5,000, Honorable Speaker, a community health promoter will get 2,500 from the national government, and then the component of the county assembly, the county government, might have to wait for 1 or 2, 3 months, Honorable Speaker, because most counties we live in them, they are in arrears in terms of payment of salaries. So this is another critical matter, Honorable Speaker, and I think really the government needs to think around this problem, Honorable Speaker, that if we say we are going to give the money 50%, 50%, then at the start of the year, Honorable Speaker, can we have a mechanism where 100% of those resources are either transferred to the county so that they are able to pay the salaries without any delay? Because salaries are a sensitive matter, Honorable Speaker. The other matter, Honorable Speaker, which is critical, is the issue of support to the county headquarters, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I've been a member of the Budget Committee since I joined this Parliament. And every year, Honorable Speaker, we have been pushing this money to the counties for construction of county headquarters for about 5 counties, which didn't have any county headquarters when we started, Honorable Speaker. But the problem has always been, Honorable Speaker, that despite the money being in the budget every year, Honorable Speaker, there has been minimal implementation. We are now in almost the 10th year budgeting for these resources. And these 5 counties have never had their county headquarters completed, Honorable Speaker. So the question is, what challenges are we facing? In terms of the resources are there, can we really come up with a way, Honorable Speaker, that we get this matter behind us so that the resources are released and the counties are able to construct their headquarters? In that case, Honorable Speaker, then we will be helping the counties. Otherwise, in a situation where we budget for money, it never gets to the counties.
Honorable Makali, what has been the impediment? You began by saying you have been in the budget committee since you came to the House. That's about 2013. Proceed.
Basically, Honorable Speaker, the problem has been, anytime you talk to them, they say they are not able to agree with the public works. You know, public works procedure will be the people to design the projects and implement them. So they always claim there has been that delay, Honorable Speaker. But I suspect, Honorable Speaker, the other element has also been exchequer releases, Honorable Speaker. Because, you know, the government is used to this idea of you put money in the budget, but when it comes to exchequer release so that you have the cash in the bank to implement, Honorable Speaker, the money never reaches the counties. So even as you blame the counties, Honorable Speaker, I think the national government must also play their role, Honorable Speaker, and more so in a timely manner so that we don't delay implementation of the projects. So the other bit I was talking about, Honorable Speaker, these county headquarters, I think we need to make a decision, Honorable Speaker, that if we want to complete them, then let's have a time frame in terms of implementation. As a country, we can agree, we don't allow this for 2 years or 1 year, and by the end of that, Honorable Speaker, then we list the money and we conclude the headquarters. The other important bit, Honorable Speaker, and this has been mentioned by many of my colleagues, just as we are experiencing the problem of accountability at the county level, Honorable Speaker, I think generally as a country, colleagues, we really seriously need to think about prudent use of public resources. We have seen situations where, Honorable Speaker, all said and done, comparing where we are as a country, comparing the challenges we are going in terms of our economy, in terms of economic growth, comparing the challenges in terms of revenue collection, Honorable Speaker, I think at times we need to come up with a very clear priority list of what we should do as a country and what we should not do. And I want to propose, Honorable Speaker, that even though some things might be in the budget, Honorable Speaker,
in a situation where we are saying this could be a priority and we go to an extent of borrowing, Honorable Speaker, it is important we only borrow for priority projects in this country, projects which will have maximum outcomes and impact for this country. Otherwise, Honorable Speaker, we continue digging that deep hole where we will never be able to get out of it. The other thing, Honorable Speaker, because the counties are with us, Honorable Speaker, and these Kenyans have said that the best thing to happen to them was devolution. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to support anybody who says, can we support devolution? And I think we have a very clear legal framework, institutional framework, resource mobilization framework, and even financial framework, Honorable Speaker, that we need to support devolution, Honorable Speaker, by allocating more resources. And when the resources are allocated, Honorable Speaker, we ensure that there is prudent use of those resources. Even though that is a country, Honorable Speaker, within a short time we'll be getting ourselves out of this deep hole we have dug for ourselves in terms of budget deficit. And if we go that way, Honorable Speaker, we'll be helping this country. But the county government must also come up, Honorable Speaker, and ensure that they use the resources and apply those resources to the areas which are supporting the Kenyans who are at the lowest level of the income pyramid, Honorable Speaker. In that case, Honorable Speaker, I want to support this bill on the additional government allocations, Honorable Speaker. But, Honorable Speaker, as a House, I want to plead with my colleagues and plead with the Senate that we fast-track this bill so that it becomes an act of Parliament and open the doors for utilization of these resources. I submit, Honorable Speaker, and thank you so much.
Makali Mulu, the Honorable Bernard Kitur.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute on this County Government Additional Allocations Bill 2025. In the upshot, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that we support indeed the county governments and their functions so that they are able to, as we support the devolution, they are able to provide services for the Kenyan people in which they are desperately in need. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I think it is important also to encourage the House that both Senate and National Assembly, that some of these bills, when they come, we fast-track them so that we don't deny Kenyans their opportunity and the county governments to be able to utilize these resources. Mr. Speaker, I am cognizant of the also international politics that are happening, and even as we pass some of this bill that will unlock about 42 billion shillings as conditional additional allocations, I think it is important for us also to find ways and means that we can be able to spur our economy, and we are able sometimes to raise some of these resources on our own, that we do not need to depend entirely or mainly on donors to be able to support some of our very critical aspects of works that needs to be done for our people. Mr. Speaker, it is critical indeed for us to support this bill because it's going to unlock one of the things that I noticed, support systems that is coming to the primary health care in the devolved context. And this also goes much more, Mr. Speaker, in supporting the CHPs or the community health promoters, whom in my view play a very critical role in the social health or making sure that we are able to get the data of all Kenyans right down to the villages to know how they are doing or regarding their health and supporting them, advising them. And so this conditional allocation that would go to the CHPs, to me, part of why I'm supporting this is to be able to facilitate the CHP promoters and as such promote the health of Kenyans. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, is some of the functions of what the county aggregation and industrial parks was supposed to do in spurring the economic development of regions. I'm also cognizant from the county that I come from. I do know that the county aggregation, the KIPE that has been built, somewhat has stalled. And if these funds will go down there to unlock the works I think this needs to have been done like yesterday, and therefore I support this. Among several other counties that I've seen that needs to have these county aggregation industrial parks that will support the young people and the communities, especially who are very strong in various aspects, and this would promote the industrial parks within the counties. Thirdly, and I think this should have gone as well when I was talking about the CHPs, is that these funds would go as well in paying the salaries arrears of the healthcare workers. As I indicated before, I think we need to relook at this so that we do not have to entirely rely on donors to support us in even payment of healthcare workers. I am also cognizant when I look at the various support systems that donors are going to, when we are unlocking the sum of these 42 billion shillings, is what would go to the Kenya Informal Settlement Improvement Projects. Because to me, when I look at some of the works that the county governments now are doing, literally, you don't seem to see, unless some of these projects that are supported by donors. And indeed, I am still calling upon the county governments, even as we pass these resources, that we find a way that we can be able to have these funds utilized in a transparent manner. The KISI programs, I see there's one that has been supported by AFD and World Bank. Yes, indeed, has improved the informal settlement. Even in my own constituency, we have an informal settlement that I think for the first time we are getting this support coming through, and this would go a long way in improving the lives of the many people who are there. However, we still want to see more transparency on these projects that are being done back in the villages, in the counties. I have also noted that, Mr. Speaker, the emergency locust response projects, these are some of the projects, unfortunately, again, we still depend on development partners to support us. Some of these things, I still insist that we need to find a way so that in the future, if it so happens that we find some governments that have been supporting us before and they decide that they do, new policies coming in and they stop doing some of these very basic projects, we should be able on our own to support such. I have seen the climate resilience investments, food systems and resilience projects. These very critical programs, we must be able to, not only as I still talk about the transparency, but also the involvement of the young people so that this can spur and improve the livelihoods of those back in the counties. It is also noteworthy, Mr. Speaker, I have seen the Kenya Livestock Commercialization Project. I think these are very important funds that we need to release to the counties so that we can promote particularly those counties that are in dry areas and those that depend on livestock production. So as we unlock these funds, indeed it's going to support in a big way those communities, the pastoralist communities that rely on this. Mr. Speaker, this being both unconditional and conditional grants, I am also touched by the 10 counties that have been able to institute ways that they are able to have the unconditional funds through the fines, which I can see contributes about 116 million that today we are approving to them. I am impressed by Murang'a County. By all standards and means, they have been able to set up their structures, that they have been able to generate 70 million shillings. It is noteworthy sometimes to appreciate some of those counties that are doing pretty well. I think it calls now on the other counties to also have this internally generated revenues, of course, through the setting up of the court systems, so that they can have additional, it should be a wake-up call to other counties in our country to look at ways of generating incomes for themselves. As I say, it is sad only to have 10 counties that are reported in this bill, Mr. Speaker. It is also very important, Mr. Speaker, to note some of the stipulations that this bill brings by, that any agreements that a county government and a development partner will have entered shall be tabled by the National Treasury in this House and Senate before being included in the budget policy statements. This is purposely for transparency purposes. I think it is important for this House also to be able to know, so that even as we pass the bills, we are also aware of any agreements that the county governments are engaging themselves with development partners. Note what as well, Mr. Speaker, is where the Cabinet Secretary shall continue to publish every 15 days of subsequent month a monthly report on all actual additional allocations to the county government. I think also for transparency purposes, this is very important. And the more the reason why I support this bill. But finally, Mr. Speaker, as many of my colleagues have raised their concerns on how the county governments are utilizing their funds, I think we call upon as well more of transparency. We need to feel these funds that we release to the county governments, we need to feel these funds being utilized on ground. It cannot be that ourselves, we have small money for the CDF, but you can feel it. If it is Kera Road, we do it properly. We allocate a lot of these funds, but literally we don't see any work being done by these counties. I call upon the governors that even as we look at the many reports that are always being released, that we need transparency, and all government agencies are supposed to be looking on the utilization of this fund.